phrase that I want you guys to start using. The government launders censorship.
He could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team. It was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert.
We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook.
The Department of Homeland Security is creating a disinformation governance board to discuss strategies for reducing the spread of so-called misinformation. It is not the U.S. government's responsibility to decide what is and what is not misinformation. Moreover, the federal government has shown itself not particularly adept at identifying misinformation. Government-supported efforts to suppress the COVID-19 lab leak theory and the Hunter Biden laptop story have proven to be disastrously misguided. In both of those cases, social media sites centered those stories because supposed experts in the mainstream media and in the government gave them bad recommendations.
And Your Honor, and I held up the playbook. I said, what I discovered in the last 24 hours is an actual manual, a guide, written by these defendants who will all have lied to you and told you they don't even know each other. In fact, the author of these two is Tassinari and Nassid, and the contributors on these two are Twitter legal. They define this new ideological theory called influence operators. What is an influence operator? It's anyone who has influence on the internet and spreads misinformation as they define it, as a government defines it. And one of the ways they define influence operations, it's in bullet 3, is someone who says that government officials are corrupt.
Do you personally think that the elections in San Luis are free and fair?
No. They're fixed. They've been fixed. They already know, seriously, who is going to win the next election before it even happens.
Because I think people think that this documentary is like, just take this documentary to a courtroom and we're good to go, you know, and we'll start prosecuting. Like I don't think that's what this documentary shows, but I do think that this documentary shows all that is absolutely needed to conduct a major investigation, right? And even without being monetized, you know, we're still very careful about making accusations, and we're doing that now, right?
You can't tell what the votes were, who the votes were intended for. So there's no way to possibly say whether or not it would have swayed the election. Some type of deduction.
But like, even though it's impossible to say that legally, like as an opinion, to me it's obvious, right?
Well,
like I wouldn't take that into a court of law, but I'm like, with everything else considered that has gone on since 2020 and everything else that's gone down, this is something that we're going to find out right now, just how freaking shady the FBI is.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And this is the phrase that I want you guys to start using. The government launders censorship.
Hey everybody, welcome aboard for another great Wednesday night. Jack, I don't know if you're able to see the chat. I am not able to see the chat.
No.
That's not good. So that's a melon error, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a button that says chat, but I don't see anything there.
Well, did you click it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You clicked it?
Yeah.
And what does it say?
It just says English, enable dark mode.
What?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, folks. So I'm going to be going back and forth to different channels to see what the chat is. I don't know why it's not just showing, but apparently something's going on. Not sure if it's going on the streaming side or if it's going on the platforms side, but we are unable to see chat at the moment. So just keep that in mind. And then let's get into it. So, I came on, Jack, earlier in the week and sort of spouted off at the mouth about the whole censorship thing, and I made that video, I put it out, then Facebook wouldn't let me play it, so the one I just played was edited again for Facebook, so that I had to take out, basically I had America's Frontline Doctors in there, and they were the America's Frontline Doctors talking about Dr. Simone, and they were saying, thousands of doctors, whatever, are being silenced. And Facebook didn't like that. They said I'm dangerous. They said I'm going to hurt people, and they smacked me and said you're not allowed to play it. So I took it off for them because for the topic I was doing, there's plenty of material without using them. I also used the Fox News clip where Neil Cavuto was going out of his mind, spewing just constant misinformation on Fox Business, and then showing a simple CDC document to debunk it. I don't think they like that either. But to everybody out there, you can actually go and view that on Rumble, which is why I have the Rumble backdrop today. Jack, did you see that?
I did. Yes, sir.
It's where all the cool people are hanging out now. That's what I heard.
They are.
So, Jack, we've been looking into this Ukrainian thing. Like, what's going on over there?
Yeah, so there's 4 regions in the Ukraine that they're actually getting together tomorrow. And I don't know if we would consider it a vote. They're referendums. But basically what they want to do is rejoin the Russian Federation. Now, some will say that they don't want to rejoin. It's being made to look, and they're being forced to rejoin the Russian Federation. Really depends on what side you're talking to, and unless you're on the ground.
That was the narrative on Crimea too, though, wasn't it? And it turned out to be completely false.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what we know about those regions is that they're predominantly Russian-speaking regions, and since Zelensky and the West took over, Kiev and that portion of the Ukraine, they've put things in place. For example, to what extent I don't know, but banning the Russian language, maybe in some forms of media. I don't quite recall, but I know there's been a lot of contention regarding what Kiev has done with that. The folks in those regions have the Russian folks in those regions have protested about. So, I mean, time will tell. I think the significance of this, George. Are you still with me? Can you hear me?
I am. I hear you.
All right.
Are you wondering why I haven't cut you off or anything?
No, you're frozen solid right now.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm moving on. I think that's just on you, Jack. I'm watching it on Twitch right now, and it looks like I'm moving.
All right. You sure you're just not twitching? Anyway, that was a poor shot. But yeah, so one of the concerns there, Russia, of course, they have China's backing, and they're really, putting themselves in a position to combat, the folks over in Davos and their new world order. And we're looking at what I might begin to term the potential for an Asian new world order. As Russia grows in power and unites with Asia, and they bring aboard more and more of the Asian region, we're seeing that, that whole thing come together. And it's interesting because, and this is not true of China, but what I see happening in Russia, I don't know if you're aware, but over the last 10 years, they've put in about 300,000 churches, and they're going back to their Orthodox religious roots. And so, I'm not going to say, I'm on Putin's side by any stretch of the imagination, but essentially what he's saying is that the West, their morality is degrading, and what he has in place in Russia in terms of morality, their traditional religious beliefs, they want no part of that Western culture. So, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing.
No, I have, and I mean, look, the initial shock with the Ukraine situation is, and when I say shock, I don't mean I'm shocked that Russia invaded Ukraine. We totally made sure that was going to happen. We did everything in our power to make sure that was going to happen, and then that happened. What was shocking to me was the sheer volume of media propaganda that came from us, and so and that shower of fake stories that were coming out by Western media. Italy was doing it, Germany, the US was all over it, things like that Phantom Pilot and the Snake Island story, and all of those stories, after being debunked. There was the tank, right? The tank is the one that got me, where the tank, Russian tank runs over a civilian, like I bought into that. I was like, who's going to lie about something like, of course, stupid me. But, everybody got caught on something. I mean, I remember seeing Bongino got caught on the Snake Island story, and like all of those stories coming out and all of that fake narrative. And I'm just kind of, after going through that process, I guess, and knowing that, all of that nonsense came out, it opened my eyes to what's going on in that region. Because if you look at all of the fake stories with the video game backdrops, the Italian news station had the video game backdrop with missiles shooting into the air and whatever. And like all of that narrative was designed for one purpose, and that was to paint the picture that that Russia is such a tyrant and so crazy in this situation. And like that was shocking to me when I first heard it, when I believed it, because I'm like, they kind of are Russian. Like Ukraine, they're not Russian, but they're Russian, right? like half the country speaks Russian as a first language. It's not, they have no intentions of disassociating with Russia. Half the country was actually fighting on behalf, to help Russia. Like there's a lot of good blood between a good portion of Ukraine and Russia. And like then there was the Crimea story where they're talking about how terrible and tyrannical the Crimea takeover was. And then I go and look into that, and it's like, no, the Crimean people in Crimea, they were happy that they became part of Russia again, and always considered themselves Russian. So when I look at these four, territories, when I hear that they're looking to side with Russia, it's not shocking to me to hear that. And I think this narrative that's been played out is breaking down to its raw roots now. Like, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to spin this, assuming all four are true and all four are going to align with Russia. If that happens, the entire narrative is blown up for the West. The entire narrative. I mean, they're going to spin it, I assume, like you said, they're forcing them to do it. They're forcing them to comply, whatever. But because they made that narrative for Crimea, it's not believable.
I just
like they've already used that narrative, and they were caught. So it's like, where are they at now?
I know. I mean, I hate to say it. I sit here and I just hate to say, well, geez, our people are lying to us. And I'm starting to have this tendency to think what I'm hearing from Putin is actually more correct. And it kind of starts, I kind of tense up. That starts to bother me because it
bothers me too. But that's the thing. There's a ton of fake crap probably coming out of Russia too.
True.
We don't have access to their fake crap. But when you know that there's so much fake crap, when you know for a fact that we're on the side of the fake news and the fake garbage that we're putting out with blatantly false stories that are spread, they had the photo of the of the guy who was leaving, kissing his daughter and his wife goodbye to go and fight the Russians, and then in reality, it was a photo of someone in was it East, where they're in favor of Russia, so the guy was pro-Russia and was actually kissing his wife and kid goodbye to go fight for the Russians, and there are so many BS stories that have been propped up and propagated in this whole situation that it's like the whole world's going crazy right now. And this is what, and it's really since the day Joe Biden took over, the entire world. It's like just as Trump was leaving, someone was like dumping gasoline all over the world. And as soon as Biden got sworn in, they were like, and threw the match on. And then poof, within like weeks, Keystone shut down, gas prices shooting up, Palestinians and Israelis are at it again. Iran is talking, is talking their game again. North Korea is testing missiles, like all of a sudden, it's like instantaneous. As soon as he takes over, everybody was like, it's almost like all the bad guys in the world were like, is he gone? And they're like, yes, he's gone. All right, and everybody just went ape crap. Like that. That's literally what it was like.
Yeah, I mean, and they're still afraid of him. I don't remember the name of the district attorney in New York, but she came out today and said, she's accusing him of this and that, and his whole family's involved, and they have the evidence. And they're going to bring him down. Yeah, we will see. So
it's so crazy at this point. Like I'm almost, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. There's a part of me, Jack, that's kind of annoyed that like they're so bad at doing this. Like I feel like my vision of deep state was like, they could plant stuff and make it look like it's always been there, and they can do this and they can, but like they keep coming after him with these ridiculous claims and just keep losing. And they just keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. But it's like, there's a part of me that's just like, dude, I had a higher, I thought the deep state was bigger than that. like I thought they were better at this than they apparently are, because they cannot for the life of them, like make any of this garbage stick. Like, I'm almost at the point, like, will someone just plant the gun in the drawer already? Like, will someone just do it so that we can move on? Because, like, this is, like, hilarious now. Like, I feel like there's circus music playing every time I see a new Trump story come out. Trump being accused of, followed by some bizarre freaking claim, followed 6 months later by Trump released on all charges. All charges are dropped. No crime here. And it's just like, how much of this can we possibly freaking, it's going to go on until the 2024. Like, there's going to be one after the other. What are we on? Like number 5 now, right?
Yeah, it's
not
ridiculous.
Counting the House raid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, that's, Jack, I got to tell you, I don't think we're streaming to Facebook right now.
No,
I don't think so.
I think we're having problems tonight.
Yeah, there's something off with the connection, because they're like I'm seeing people, I'm going to the channels individually because I'm not getting any stats, and like nothing is coming through. Like, there are people watching, but I'm not getting the stats on our end. So for some reason, it's a little wonky today, but I am monitoring the channels, folks. So I do see you out there, and thank you for watching across platforms. I want to, if you comment, I will catch it eventually, and go ahead and give you the shout out, like Barbecue on Rumble. Hello, Barbecue. I went and typed it in there for you, but how you doing, Barbecue? Thank you for watching, and I'll get across the platforms and start doing it, but. On the other note, now that the world's on fire, and we've been on fire now for some 2 years, to the point where we're like used to it, it's almost like it's become normal to just see absolute chaos, not just in the U.S. but in the world in general. It's become like the norm. Like this is
Right.
what defines Biden's presidency, and really, I mean, honestly, in the long run, I think at some point, no matter who's writing the history books, someone's going to acknowledge that Biden was never running this show from day one. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that he doesn't have the wits about him to do it. That's not even a political dig. I think that's just what he's exhibited, as they walk him out there, which is just sad in its own right that they're taking this guy who's not all mentally there and just rolling him out in front of crowds and, and he walks away, reading the speeches and reading like the pauses and reading the, it's like, it's bad,
Shaking the air.
And look, world on fire or not, the reality of the matter is, and we say this, I know I say this all the time. It's the problems almost don't even, I'm like numb to them now. Like I'm so dialed in on the solution at this point that I don't even friggin', it's like noise. I hear it in the background and it's like noise. It doesn't faze me, doesn't affect me. It's like, all right, can we call this convention already? Can we just do it?
Well, so speaking of going to the solution, right? Two things that I wanted to accomplish tonight, because we kind of have a bit of an open mic night, right? To bounce around. And two of the things that I wanted to go over, and they're tied together. I had a conversation with Monica Sellers today, which she's a regional vice president for Convention of States and works very closely with Mark Meckler. And for people that don't know, Mark Meckler runs the Convention of States, pretty influential guy. And so she and I spoke for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes or so. And I want to share that with you. But here's something else that came out of it. And what I wanted to talk about tonight is my thought that we need to reach more and more people and get the people to understand really what's happening in this country, right? And what's happening worldwide. But let's start with the country. And I think of the most dire issue we have right now is the infiltration of China into the United States, into the educational system, into the political world, and their influence. They have so much dirt and so much influence over so many facets of the institutions that are out there. And I don't think that the average Joe really recognizes that. And unfortunately, it's not like he can continue to put out a lot of really solid information because it gets banned. And so what I wanted to bring up is on the Daily Wire, there's a series, and I wanted to encourage anybody that's willing to listen. There's a series, and it's called China, the Enemy Within. Let me look down at it. So there are 5 episodes. One of them is about tying Fauci to China. The next one's about tying Biden to China. The next one is our educational system. The next one is the NBA. And then the next one is Hollywood. Now, I watch these. They're absolutely phenomenal, but you're not going to see them online. You have to sign up for the Daily Wire to find these videos and to watch them. And what I would encourage people to do is whoever, family members, friends that just don't get what's happening. These types of videos, they're very well put together, very well produced, and it would give you an opportunity to get these out in front of some people. Like I intend to send this link out to my daughter's boyfriend. And, he goes to college in California, so you can tell where his head's leading, right? But I want to send these out to him and have some deeper discussions. I think that really, for all of us to do our part, we need to start sharing more and more information that gets people to understand what's happening. Then they get unsettled, they get disturbed, And once you feel that pain, now we talk about what we can do with Article 5, because Article 5 is the solution. But you have to have people are not going to
It's
get
like in
off
that
the
intro,
dime.
like you first, like before anything else, you've got to get mad. Like, like
Yeah,
before anything, you've got to get mad.
It is.
And if people aren't mad at this point, like if you're living in the world today and you're not pissed about something, I mean, there's so, like we said, the world is on fire right now. There's so many things across so many different issues. The education system is terrible, right? It's terrible. And while you listen to leadership, and these global leaders in the WEF and elsewhere, which WEF includes pretty much every president, prime minister, etc., you listen to these people talk about how unprepared we are, and then you stop and think about it for a second, like, oh, we're unprepared for the job market that's coming, and oh, really? That's funny, because you guys were the ones that left. You guys are talking about it 10 years late, and now you want us to follow you. Like you want us to go with your decision making when you're coming to us after you've created this problem, and now tell us about how you're going to solve it? No, right? That's where they get the big no, and it's and this is why, and you may say to yourself, well, Jack just talked about he talked about China and their roots in our education system and all of these different things. Well, how does Article 5 address that? Well, first of all, there's a few ways that it does, but I'm going to name the biggest one last. So just look at the three topics that we're talking about. We're talking about term limits for all federal officials. So when you look at the politicians that are in bed with China, it's not the young ones. Okay, it's not the ones that just won office or are serving a second or third term. It's all the people who have been in office who all of them would be termed out. Let's just say that. All of them would be termed out. All right. So that's one way that it helps. The other way that it helps, when you look at government overreach, okay? So here we've got the education system that Jack's talking about. China's got its tentacle all up in our education system. You know why? Because the education system is no longer local by anything other than illusion. It's no longer local. Every single piece of curriculum is getting pumped in from the federal government level. And why? Why is that happening? You say, oh no, my state legislators did this and that. Yeah, they did, but they did it because it got them a grant from the government and it's not that they're pocketing this money. Like they're thinking the traditional thought was, well, heck, if we can get $50 million for our education system, just for talking about this, that, and whatever, well, then let's do it. But then it didn't really come to light even to them what exactly this, that, and whatever was. And it was disguised and cryptic, like, oh, we're just talking about diversity and, it's all great. Yeah, equity. And like nobody got into the nuts and bolts and nobody followed up to find out. Meanwhile, we've got teachers who have been taught in these universities, again, heavily influenced by the CCP, who are in these universities and actually believe this madness that they teach. So through government overreach, we would shut down the Department of Education right there. Why? Because it has no authority to exist. Plain and simple. It has under the 10th Amendment, it has no authority to exist. It would be gone. All right. That's the first step. All right. The second step is now that it's gone. All right. Now states are forced to take back control. And I've heard state legislators talk about how embarrassed they are over the fact that they let things get to this place, because in their heads they thought they were doing the right thing for their state, but in reality they now realize they were not. Like in reality, they now realize that the strings that came with all that money that they thought they brought home for their state, which they did bring home for their state, the strings attached to all that were straight poison. And they're now realizing that, as most of the country is realizing what's been going on, right? State legislatures, we've said this a million times, they're not like lifer politicians in Washington. These are average Joes. We had that one episode where I kept playing that clip of the the state senator, I think it was the state senator, it might have been the House, where Mark Meckler, says, well, you guys are politicians for a living. And the guy stopped him and was like, I'm a farmer.
Right.
Like that's what we're dealing with in our state legislature, which is good. That's what we want in there. That's the type of people we want in there. It's just when it comes to stuff like this, they're not as learned on the intricacies of foreign policy and where these ideas and motives are coming from. And they're not, they are now, hopefully they've been waking up to this, but in the end, they haven't always been that way. It's the same way most of the American people are not that way. So that's the overreach. And then last is the fiscal restraints. So when you look at all this foreign influence that comes to us, right, fiscal restraints is a huge play in that. The entire way that the corruption in our system works in this favor exchange between corporate, and again, this is a topic that the left and the right 100% agree on, that the relationship between corporate America and our politicians and political leaders is an unholy one, right? And the fact is, once you get rid of the 16th Amendment, and now there's no more income tax, and it's all consumption tax, there's no more leverage. The favor game is over. It's over. There's no more leverage for a politician, and many people still in their heads think it's the corporations who are dominating the politicians. That's not how it works. It's the politicians who are dominating the corporations. Okay, you want to wonder why Coke is putting out a training that says "Be less white." All right, that's not Coca-Cola dominating a politician. That's the politician dominating Coca-Cola. And in reality, any penny that gets given to these politicians, they just pay them right back in full with our money. It's all a game. They're just taking our tax money and basically laundering it, is how it's working. All of that ends. All of that ends without an income tax. If everybody's just paying what they pay, if they're 10% consumption tax, whatever it may be, if we're back to tariffs again, as it was originally intended to be, right? They made that amendment because the courts kept shooting down an income tax. We had one during the Civil War, and as soon as the war ended, they got rid of it. It's been unconstitutional forever. And the reality of the matter is it needs to go. And when it does, a lot of this game breaks down. A lot of this. So just imagine those three things. Department of Education gets shut down. Income tax is gone. So there's no more political favor game with politicians. And now you're in this camp where you've got the last piece left, right? So we talked about the fiscal restraints. What am I? Oh, and now all those people that were in there who were doing that favor exchanging are no longer there. Imagine all of that happened instantly, right? Just imagine the changes that take just with those three, right? And that's not the most important piece. The most important piece I said I'd say for last, that's the precedent. That's the precedent that gets set. What did Thomas Jefferson say? That when the people feel government, it's tyranny. When the government fears the people, it's liberty, right? Well, that this puts that relationship back on the way it should be. The government then, once this, if anything passes, if this process just goes through, if it just goes through, we're looking at a situation where for the next freaking 100 years, 250 years, as long as people remain engaged and remain active, right? Like if we got this huge grassroots army and they all dissipate after the convention's called and the amendments are done and they're all gone, then it lasts as long as it lasts. But assuming everybody stays active and stays engaged, now that we've all learned that lesson, right? If that happens, there's sky's the limit. The government will always be looking over its shoulder, no matter what it does, over its shoulder at the American people, like, what do they think? And they won't be doing it as a stump speech. They'll be doing it with true concern because they don't want to be the ones. It's an embarrassing play to be in the federal government when this goes through. Because you're representing the entity that was so bad that the people had to step up and do the job themselves because the people that we had hired to do it were too incompetent.
All right. Well, So let me tell you about my conversation with Monica today.
Yeah, you haven't told me about that.
Yeah, so it went good. She's actually going to come on the show. She turned me on to a couple of organizations. I want to bring them up to our audience right now because I need to dig into them. But she felt that it would be good to share these organizations, their mission, and some of the programs they have with our audience. And of course, I'll be happy to do that, but I want to learn about them first. So she's going to come on the show, but that's going to be sometime after mid-October.
Okay.
And then right now, their Mark Meckler's team, I gave them some date ranges, and they're working on filling him in.
Perfect.
And then, so he's definitely coming on. It's all approved. He's coming on the show.
All the T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Yeah, it's all done. And then, other than the date, but that's happening. Monica also said something very interesting. She said to me, Jack, if you have certain topics that you and George want to talk about, and you want different people that are, out there across the country that might have some level of expertise, let me know what the topic is. I know a lot of people, and I can get you guests.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool.
Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I think, we talked and she would like to see us grow. I told her, I said, look, George and I are behind this 110%, and we need to grow this channel so we can get more of the word out. So anything you can do to help us to do that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I kind of went on a rant on Monday about how frustrated I was that so many people don't know, just don't know about Article 5 and the power that's within, and really about our Constitution in general. And and this is kind of, it almost goes back to what you were saying earlier with China being so embedded in our education system, because that's the reason, right? Like people don't realize, because it's subtle, right? It's like with that guy that Project Veritas, outed, right? Where he was explaining, well, it's subtle. He's like, we do these things with children as if that's just the way things are done. And we do them all in a leftist manner, so that by the time they get older, they don't know any better. If there's no one there to step in and stop it, they don't know any better. And that's, it's no different as to the reason why people don't understand Article 5. And it drives me insane. It makes me want to scream louder from the rooftop. It makes me want to, get on more, talk more. I'm going to be putting out, now that the ban is off and everything is open again. And folks, by the way, if you're still watching, make sure that you subscribe to our Rumble channel, because if you're not aware, we did just get whacked off of YouTube for 7 days because they just couldn't handle a conversation about 2,000 mules, which is crazy to me. There wasn't even that nutty a conversation. It was a totally level-headed, regular conversation where at no point did we state anywhere that there was 100% fact-based assertion that the election was a fraud. I gave my opinion on it. Never once said clearly it wouldn't be good in a court of law, and still nothing. And still they didn't care. Jack, are you still with me? Because you're frozen.
I am.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, I don't think my camera's coming back, but I'm here.
All right, very well. I just wanted to make sure I'm not.
Yeah.
And we are definitely not streaming to Facebook today, so that explains why the viewer count is a little bit lower than normal, even though I'm not getting a ton of stats through the software, but we are, for some reason, it might be that old issue where the stream just fails and I got to shut it all down and reset everything up again. But apparently it did not stream to Facebook. So we'll upload this later for our Facebook folks. But in the end, every once in a while, guys, this kind of thing can happen when we go live. So what I would recommend to you is to just pick multiple platforms, right? So for example, like we just said, subscribe to the Rumble channel. If you see that we're not on, You could check one of the other platforms. That's one of the reasons we do multiple platforms, to make sure, no matter what happens, everything goes through okay. But yes, and follow us on Facebook, the whole nine, right? So, and of course, if you're not already subscribed to YouTube, then get down with that program as well. But yeah, Jack. So I mean, I'm excited for the content that we have coming. I'm fired up now. Monica's got me fired up now. That I know that we're getting, because I've really been enjoying talking with these state directors and having these back and forths, and kind of learning some of the strategies, some of the challenges they're having, things of that nature, and hopefully showing other people, that these are normal, regular people, regular everyday Joes who are out there fighting to make a difference, and that, hopefully inspire them to do the same.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing that I think is very exciting is the fact that we have access through Monica to perhaps an array of people across the United States that can add value to to our talks, and bring other perspectives, and that can help us get the word out a little bit more. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it fires me up, and look, I've been, we've been on this for a while now, not as long as the good folks at Cause Action, but we've been on this for a good while now. And, I have no intention of getting off anytime soon. And I'll say this, I try to make sure the cameras get me at a good angle. And I say this to all the Cause grassroots people out there. If Cause Action is ever taking a group photo, or they're ever coming up to you for a snapshot, make sure they get your good side. Don't blow that picture off. Make sure they get your good side, because when the history books are written 250 years from now, there's going to be people looking at your photo in some random history book as the folks who turned it all around. And I believe that 110%. I believe that 110%.
Yeah. I mean, these people that are out there, that are on the street, that are doing that work for Cause, they're making history. And I'm sure to them it doesn't feel that way, because it's a slow grind, right? But so is everything that's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So is everything that's worth it. And that's, and for people that don't understand, this movement started in 2013. So this is not something that just popped up overnight, that just, flash in the pan. Oh, we hate Biden, and we started, and a movement started. This has been going on pre-Trump. This has been going like this is bigger. These solutions to these problems are bigger than anything else on the platform today. If someone doesn't think, most people don't think that these problems can be solved, because they don't understand Article 5. And that's, that's the whole point, is that these problems can be solved, and they will be solved. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. 19 states on board. I don't think this year is done yet either. There's a few states out there that we still have a crack at. So, in the end, if one of those states is yours, you need to get cracking. Stop complaining and play offense. That's the way the game needs to be played. No, Jack?
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, we have a lot of headway being made in places like Massachusetts. Who would have thunk it? Pennsylvania. Who would have thunk it? So there's a variety of areas that are they're gaining momentum. They're getting the traction that they need. There's other areas where it's not as it's not the outlook isn't as rosy, and those are the areas that we want to focus in on. And we want to try and get some of those state directors online, talk with them. I know, we've made an offer where they're having some struggles up in Rhode Island. We've made an offer that if they can get us all of the a list of all of the pastors and priests up there, we'd put together a special message for them and send it directly to them, trying to encourage them to engage with Cause. So we're willing to do, whatever it is we can do And we just got to figure out how to reach more and more people and get this word out. Because at the end of the day, we are going to be facing the devil once this thing gets around 24 states or so.
Yep.
That's when everyone's coming out of the woodwork about why Article 5 is so bad.
That's when the media brings the fire, right?
That's when they bring the fire. Then it's COVID, it's vaccines, it's doom and gloom. It's the world's going to end, and they'll have little Greta from somewhere in the Eastern Bloc saying Article 5 will all die in 5 years, and she'll be crying, right?
How dare you change the U.S. Constitution? How dare you?
How dare you? Yeah, and that's what's going to happen, right? But we got to get out ahead of that, that pitch. And you know what really frustrates me, George? And it's funny, and I don't know what I expect. Maybe I'm expecting too much, but who's that English guy? Russell Brand, right? I've been after that guy like
I don't know why you're so infatuated with him.
Yeah, because he's got like 5 million viewers or whatever, and he keeps saying, "Oh, we're looking for a solution," and I don't know a lot about what goes on in the States, but that's why I have you here for. Why don't you let me know what we can do? What do you have to say? Well, I keep doing it, and I keep saying, "Hey, Russell, I got an idea. Hey, Russell, He don't give a shit. You know?
Well, but Jack, you got to also remember, there's probably when there's 5 million subscribers, you're probably looking at
I'm the first one that comments. I'm the first one, George.
No, you're the first one in your view. When you look at it, you're the first one.
The second the bell goes off, I'm there. I mean, it's like it goes off. He's like, posted 30 seconds ago. Boom. I even wrote stuff and I cut and pasted it so I wouldn't lose any time. It's like if he's doing his own posting, he's got to see my name coming up at least once.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's interesting that there are, and I say this because a lot of our subscribers, a good portion, I would say a good portion of our subscribers, followers, across platforms are international, and a lot of Australia, a lot of UK. There's a lot of Canada. We've got some from Ukraine, Kazakhstan. I think we got a couple. Like there's a few. We've got a decent little blend of countries. And what's interesting when I discourse with them is, to your point, they do know. Like now that they're hearing, I think they came across the channel because of the Great Reset videos, which are clearly impacting everyone. And then they heard the Article 5 piece and were intrigued by it because they too understand that, and the point that I've been making is that save the United States, save the world. Like without the United States, they know that it's going to be very difficult for these globalists. Like if the United States join or break from the globalist movement, which I think everyone should, personally, I think everyone should just disconnect and worry about self-sustenance and then trade. Like whatever excesses you have, trade, but take care of your people first. This whole idea that the Netherlands goes down and the whole world can't eat, that's just insane. Right. But these people understand that. They understand that if the United States moves into a place where it's completely self-sustained, it's no longer dependent on, completely dependent on global this and global that and global out. Like there's no excuse for us to be completely dependent on global things like agriculture and things of that nature, including fuel and energy. Like it's one thing to trade globally. It's something else to be so interconnected that a global famine would affect us.
Well, not only that, I mean, when you think about it, it's ridiculous. So Europe is so dependent on Russian oil. Millions of people this winter, well, I don't know if that's an exaggeration, maybe not. Certainly hundreds of thousands of people this winter are going to die in Europe because they have no alternative in terms of fuel. There's nowhere to get the fuel from. What are they going to do to heat their homes?
Oh, they're going to get solar panels.
They're going to what?
They're going to get solar panels.
Yeah.
And wind turbines. And a little guy with lighting matches.
It's
Look,
I remember when Germany pulled this, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, and started going green, and they had tens of thousands of seniors dying in the wintertime. And I just feel like we're going to see a lot of that this year.
I mean, I wasn't visualizing it in like hundreds of thousands, like you're saying. Like I was thinking more, somewhere. I mean, there's always a few thousand every year, regardless, even when energy is good. Just people get, for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, they die of the flu and the cold, but look, I don't know. Maybe even my wife.
It's going to be catastrophic, though, and honestly, like if people you're not even going to hear about it, but I can tell you right now, as the Netherlands farm situation gets implemented, and as Canada continues to implement its situation, it's going to be harder for them to do that nitrate nonsense here in the States. But in these dictator type states, and Canada is not a dictator type state, and neither is Netherlands technically, but they are realistically, right? When you look at the way Trudeau behaves, right, like freezing people's bank accounts and going after protesters and doing all that, those are communist moves, right? Those are tyrannical moves. So as long as they're in these types of states where they can push this stuff, as that food stops getting produced, and this is the thing, it's subtle, it takes time, but like the United States is not going to starve, because in the end we do have enough. Like our farmers would just start, like I would like to think anyway that the nation's farmers would, would continue to produce. But then I look at Bill Gates and how much land he owns, and I'm like, how many of our farmers are even left that are, that are sizable, right? That aren't owned by some conglomerate that you can just take, just buy in with the CEO and you're good, and you got another, 200,000 acres of farmland that won't produce. So, but in either case, countries like in Africa that are food impoverished now, there are places in the Middle East that are this way. Like those nations are really going to suffer.
Yeah.
Like those nations are going to be suffering in a way that's going to be and you know what? Like I'm not the first person that tells me they got a solution to solve that problem is getting choked. Because the fact of the matter is anybody with a solution to solve that problem was involved in creating it in the first place. Because there's a problem that did not need to happen, and really doesn't need to be the case. Even without this craziness from WEF, it doesn't need to be the case. But it's this globalist policy, this interconnected everything that it literally causes every single problem that we have in the world today. Everything traces back to that. Everything, and this this movement and what's going on in the United States, and as we start to take the country back and we start to defang the federal government and we start to bring it back to the states, this game is going to change tremendously, and we're all going to be better off for it, including the world. The whole world is going to be better off for the fact that the United States finally got it together and had a Giuliani moment, as I call them.
Right.
All right, Jack. So we're approaching the hour. Honestly, I'm a little frustrated by the tech right now because I'm not seeing any comments. I'm not able to do. I don't have half the data that I normally have going on here, so I have no real pulse as to what's going on, out in viewerland, and it drives me nuts to produce that way. So, and we're not on Facebook anyway, so with that alone is kind of tweaking me. So. I mean, I think, look, we had an open mic tonight, kind of, just world's gone mad sort of thing. And we'll pick this up again. But you got anything you want to throw in before we jump off?
No, I'm good. We could go on. We'll probably go on offline.
Yeah, we probably will. But at least then I can have a beer,
yeah,
chill out in the patio. All right, folks. Thank you for joining. Sorry we couldn't put any comments up today. Not sure what's going on. It's wigging out on us, and and it's not the system's just not playing nice. But until next week, we will be back. Do we have anybody booked next week, Jack?
I'm leaving it open for right now until I hear from Mark.
Okay. All right. So I don't think he's going to be that quick, but we'll see. All right. He's probably going to be like a month out, 3 weeks out, something like that. But all right. So anyway, we'll go ahead and hunt someone down to bring on next week, likely one of our cause folks. Until then, folks, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to Rumble. That's our backup plan, right? In case we get whacked again, in case we disappear or you don't see another video. I'll tell you this. We are putting out, I am planning on putting out another Article 5 video by this weekend, another one of the question series, the single question series. So if you see nothing come from us, just give us a holler and look, because it may, you never know. The last video they pinged us for was 17 weeks ago. So who knows what's going on. This is the Wild West as far as, how long we get to be here. So until then, folks, we're out.